Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about why people don't pay attention to the time, why people don't pay attention to a specific clock when that's really the information they want to know. It was a question posed by one of y'all. It's pretty thought provoking when you really sit down and think about it. In a recent video, we were talking about how people in the United States like to focus on the Defcon, the defense condition. And they use that as a gauge of how at risk we are of nuclear war. But there's actually the doomsday clock, which is literally a gauge of how at risk we are of nuclear war. It seems like people would pay attention to that. But generally speaking, Americans don't. Generally speaking, Americans do not. And when you try to figure out why, you'll get a bunch of answers. I've been asking people about this. And the first one is, well, I don't like the methodology behind the doomsday clock. And if they're saying that in good faith, I mean, fine. They don't like the methodology. Okay, I mean, what are you going to say to that? But then you'll also get stuff like, well, they don't update it often enough. The Defcon, that's immediate. I mean, yeah, that's true, but you don't get to know that. The Defcon isn't public. You get to find out the same time everybody else does when the radio makes the weird noise. And what are you going to do in that little amount of time? It doesn't really help you prepare, and it's not really what you're wanting to know. You want to know the risk. That's what it's really about. And there is a specific tool to gauge that, but people tend to ignore it. I don't think it's any of the stated reasons. I think those people who obsess over the Defcon and do not look at the doomsday clock, I think they do it for the same reason that Americans will say that climate change isn't a thing, or that people don't have anything to do with it, or they walk around in the middle of a pandemic pretending it doesn't exist. For a very long time in this country, there has been a popular culture theme that kind of demonizes academics. Anti-intellectualism is really strong in the United States. And I think that's what it has to do with. I think that there's some weird sense of safety when you hear about the defense condition. You hear about the Defcon, because there's this idea that the military's there and they're going to help and they're going to save us and all of that stuff. Understand, if it ever goes to one, nobody wins. Nobody wins. And the lucky ones will be the ones that didn't know it happened. Whereas when you look at the clock, it's like looking at the climate models. It's just scary. There's no sense of comfort there, because you realize how out of your hands a lot of this stuff is. And I think that's what drives it. And I'm not saying this to just, depress people. I do have a point. There are a lot of younger people who watch this channel. Just remember that all of this stuff that you hear and see about nerds and all of this stuff and outcasts and how you don't want to be like this, and generally it gets equated with being an academic, with being an intellectual. Just remember that your education, whether it be formal or informal, self-taught, stuff you learned on your own. Your education is pretty much the only thing that can't be taken away from you. It's the one resource, it's the one asset that you will always have. It's probably worth investing a lot in because it will help you for the rest of your life. And maybe at some point we can get away from the idea that being smart, being educated, being informed is somehow bad. We live in a country where a candidate screamed, "I love the uneducated." And the people he was talking about cheered. You don't want to be one of those people. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.